Hello, friends. Thank you very much for joining me. My name is Swadik Mayancha, and I am Q the Nurse. And we are on another episode of the Everyday Hero Show. And on this show, I bring to you amazing human beings that do good things for the communities, for the people around them, but they do not get the credit that they deserve. And today, I bring you an old pal, an old friend, an old tiger, Kristina Zagame. Welcome, 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 Kristina.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So let's just start from the beginning. I know the origin story, but I would like you to tell me and the people, who are you, where are you from, and then just slightly tell us why news broadcasting or news reporting.
Okay, so I am from Newton, Massachusetts,
Woot woot.
Newton North High School. And I grew up in Newton, which is right outside of Boston, for the people that don't know. Um, I went to school in South Carolina for broadcast journalism. The reason I decided on it was actually just because an old friend when I was rowing in high school, just randomly, we were talking about different careers and different things we wanted to do. And she just randomly said to me, like, I could totally picture you being a news anchor. And as soon as she said it, it like kind of just clicked with me, like, absolutely, that's what I want to do.
Okay, wait,
And
pause. Okay,
okay.
did you just say that you were rowing?
Yeah, I did
There
crew for
was
like,
no rowing at Newton North. Who are you?
yeah,
Wait, are you being serious?
at CRI, not at Newton North.
Oh,
It,
okay, okay. But it was in Newton, like it was like a town thing.
yeah,
Okay, so your friend said she can picture you as a news broadcast, and you were like, wait a hot second, that
and
just
yeah.
oh
It just
goody.
clicked in my head. I always liked telling stories. I always loved writing in English and um, just I don't know. My mom always thought I was gonna be an author just because I like was always really good at telling other people's stories. So maybe sometime in the future, I don't know, I'll write a book. But I also just I was never afraid to be in front of people and to present and perform. So it just kind of made sense. And then I took a journalism elective my senior year, which was mostly freshmen because
Hmm.
seniors don't often take electives like that. But I just really loved it. And I here and there started writing for the paper. I got an internship at Newton TV,
No, you
and
did not.
I did.
Well, wowzers.
Got
All
my
right.
start. So yeah.
Okay, so I mean that I mean it sounds like you've known for a while, right? This is nothing new. This is sounds like it's happened, and you've put in the work to get to where you are today, which I think is really good because um, I'm kind of like I don't know. We'll get there. We'll get there. So I want to find out. I want to talk about South Carolina and how school was for college. So like once you took your journalism elective here at Newton North, which was great, good for you. But then you got into college and your focus, I mean news broadcasting was your major. So I want you to tell like the people what is news broadcasting. Are you spending more time in front of the camera? Are you spending a lot of presentation time? Is it a lot of writing? What is that major like?
It was really difficult. It obviously depends, what school you go to. South Carolina has a really good journalism program,
Hmm.
and it was really hard. I mean, it starts out with a class of like 50 people in the program, and probably more than that, honestly. And by the time you hit senior year, it drops to like maybe 20,
Oh, jeez.
25.
So that's more than
Um,
half.
yeah, it definitely singles people out. So basically, you start out as just learning the ropes of reporting because to get into this business, really, you want to start with reporting no matter what job you end up doing.
Yes.
So reporting, a lot more goes into it than people think. You not only have to like, find your story, do your home. It's almost like a little mini research project every day.
That
But
sucks.
when you actually get into the field, often like you have
A team.
4 or 5 hours to become an expert at something.
Ooh.
And so people don't really realize how hard that is because, normally you have weeks or months to read and do your research and prepare. But in our field, something could happen in the morning and you have to get everything done by, your 5 o'clock or 6 p.m. show. So in school, it was just kind of, it was, having obviously more time to kind of put together a report, like your first semester in the program, which starts junior year,
Mm.
um, you have like the whole semester you do maybe three stories, and then the following semester you do four, and then my senior semester we just basically we're not in class. We run the student newscast, and it's a daily newscast every day that went on at 4 p.m. and we were trading jobs between producing, reporting, anchoring, doing sports, doing weather, all that kind of stuff to kind of prepare us to get into the real world.
So I have a ton of questions for for later, for after you graduate, but I still want to go over a few things in school. So when you were in school, did was there ever a time where you're like, maybe a producer's better, or no, I want to be in front of the camera, or maybe the what's it called? The who's the person? So like when I think of producers and I think of movie producers, I think of producers like they put a whole lot of money into the project, right? What is the director in news broadcasting? Like I don't know too many
Okay.
like no one says who's the director when they talk about a news station. I don't hear that too often.
Okay, yeah, it's kind of confusing. So the producer, think about it, for news, is the person who's in charge of like the whole show's format and
Okay.
actually writing the scripts.
Mm.
So, it, with the exception of course, like the reporters write their own scripts, or if they go and do a story, they'll be the ones writing them. But if I'm producing like a whole show, like right now, I produce our 7 o'clock newscast, and I'm responsible for writing every script and figuring out what's the best way to like number them. You want it in a way that flows, in a way that makes sense. So that's producing when it comes to news. The director is someone who is in kind of like a whole different category. That's
Mm.
like more in our production side of things, and they're the ones who sit and they give someone cues, or depending on what station you are, they're the ones who like actually push like this button to make this clip roll and this button to go back to the camera. They do it live
Oh wow.
essentially.
Okay. All right. Makes sense. Makes sense. I'm starting to understand a very little bit about this. So when you were in school, right? Was it difficult for you to get a hang, get like for the thing is, it's like I want to do what you're doing, right? But I am like from like the total opposite. Like there's no schooling. This is just me off the cuff. I'm going off you. Like I'm just doing like the real raw dog. Like nobody's. Like I just want to know, how did you get the confidence, right? Because that was the toughest, the hardest thing for me to get in front of the camera. And you said you started this your junior year. You were doing the newscast for the school. How did you get the confidence of getting in front of the camera? And then on top of it, and the biggest part is getting in front of the camera is one thing, right? Because then you could edit and do all that stuff later. But getting in front of the camera and doing it live is a whole nother game. How did you get that confidence, especially in school when you're in the process of learning versus like now where you like at least have a foundation?
Sure. So actually, getting in front of the camera and like presenting was never what I was nervous about. I was actually nervous about all of the editing and the writing. That's
Really?
more what I was self-conscious about. Yeah. And even now, I mean, obviously, you kind of get like nervous if you start messing up or something. But I mean, these days I've been doing it for long enough that I don't really even think about it. I was like, oh, I'm about to be on live TV. Like people can watch me, like I don't really have those like panic attacks that I used to. Um, just because, I don't really think about it as like, oh, I'm on TV. Like I kind of forget that I'm even on TV until I'll like see myself in a commercial or something. And I'm like, oh,
That's
I'm
me.
on TV.
So
Yeah.
what? So why are you nervous about the editing? Why is that tough for you? Is it just it doesn't come easy to you? You put a lot of time in it. What's that?
Um, for me, that is, it's kind of funny in this industry because reporters, like the ones who are running around like crazy and putting together these big, package stories, are the ones that are usually like, um, they're like typically paid the least amount in the newsroom. You like work your way up to be on the anchor, the star of the show or whatever. But it's kind of if I were to base it on, because I've done all of the jobs, if I were to say which one is the hardest, I would say reporting is the hardest. I think personally that reporters should get paid just as much as anyone else because they're the ones who get doors slammed in their face. They have maybe they come back with all their stuff for their story at 4:30 and they have to have their entire thing done by 5. I mean, it is high stress. It is way like I was way more stressed out as a reporter than I ever was. I mean, producing and anchoring, of course, has its own hardships. I'm not saying those are easy, but by comparison, I think that reporting definitely gave me the most like anxiety, and I had to get way more confident in my writing and my video and my editing. I had to work on that a lot more than I had to work on, or than I felt I had to work at being on camera. Of course, now I have to fix myself and I want to do better things on camera, but I think reporting is
It's
definitely.
difficult.
I hated it in college. I got out and I actually turned down a few reporting jobs because I wanted something that had at least a little bit of anchoring
Mm.
because I was like, I don't want to be a reporter. I just want to be an anchor. I hate reporting. I want to do it as little as possible. And then it was funny because once I actually got into the field, I really started falling in love with reporting.
Mm.
And now I don't get it to do it as much,
Yeah.
just my schedule, which is what I always thought I wanted. And now, of course, I kind of miss reporting, and I always like beg my boss to let me do it whenever I have a second. So
Good for you. So I have seen, because you do post a few things on Facebook, and I do see some exciting things that you've done. And so when you say reporting versus being like in the producing and like being the anchor, when you like in the studio and like there's the background and all that stuff, that's when you're in the studio. That's when you're the anchor. That's when like you're doing that. And all the reporting stuff is outside of the studio stuff. So like you'll be
not necessarily. So if the anchor just tosses and says like, here's NBC5's Kristina Zagame, typically that means that I reported on that story. I went out and got it, and then I'm just in the studio being like, hey, Kristen, here's what's happening.
okay.
That so if you're only on there for like a brief like minute 30 whatever, that's typically the reporter sharing like, hey, I did some research, here's what I found, here's the story, here's my video, depending on what it is.
Okay.
Whereas anchoring, you're there for the whole show. You're
So let's
basically
talk.
like the host.
Okay, and what I also get super confused by is the fact that journalists and reporters, I don't know what the difference is. Like, what is there a difference between a journalist and a reporter? Or is it the same
Yeah.
thing?
Journalist is just like the over, um, like we're all journalists, but we
Okay,
might not be reporters.
okay, all right. So a journalist can get the information and then give it to a reporter, versus like a reporter is a journalist that can like
Well, if you're a
say.
journalist, like you can be an anchor, you can be a producer, you can be a writer, you
So
can
you
work.
consider so you consider yourself a journalist.
Yes.
Beautiful, wonderful. So let's get now. I want to start talking about the. So why don't you first tell us where are you and like just where are you and what station and all that stuff.
Okay, so I am in Medford, Oregon, which is Southern Oregon, right on the California border. Um, I work at NBC5, which also has a partnership with Fox 26. That's kind of confusing. I won't really
It
go
does
into it.
sound
Basically, I
confusing.
work for NBC5, but I also anchor the 10 o'clock Fox show.
Okay.
So
All right. So do you get to choose, or is it someone up top that tells you the stories that you need to do? Do you get to choose the stories, and do you ever do stuff like? Actually, just answer that because I have a whole nother thing that I want to talk about after.
it depends on the day.
Okay.
Uh, of course, you can always pitch a story. That doesn't mean they're going to let you do it.
Yes.
The good thing about small markets is they almost never say no. Like, I mean, unless your story is absolutely ridiculous or there's some
Yes.
kind of conflict, of course. But there's almost always time for you to do stories that you're interested in or feature pieces, which are personally my favorite, and things like that. But of course, um, there's like the top, and I don't work mornings, but in the mornings they have like a morning meeting where they have a whiteboard full of all of potential story ideas, and they get to kind of pick it. All the reporters get to kind of pick and choose what they want to do, or they can pitch their own idea and maybe they'll do that. So a little bit of
So,
both.
so do you like the local market? Do you plan on being the anchor and holding down the fort at the local market? Do you want to go national? Do you want to go international? What is Kristina Zagame's goal when it comes to reporting?
Um, honestly, like for me, dream job would either be it's kind of funny because I actually prefer working in local just because I feel like national is kind of it gets skewed. People don't take it the same way. And I like doing local stories because you get to really dig into people's stories versus national
Yes.
is kind of like a gloss over of here's what's going on. It tends to be more negative, as we know. Um, my I have like two different like dream jobs. One would be like to be on Good Morning America or the Today Show or something like that. Something that's a little more upbeat. It's fun, but it's also still important stuff. Another would just to be like on a travel journalist, on a travel show host or something like that. I absolutely love traveling, and that's my biggest like complaint, I guess I would say, about my career choice is that I don't get a lot of days off. I don't have time to go and I can't just, take a few weeks off and go travel because I'm expected to be on TV every day. And that was always a struggle with me because I just really, really love traveling. So if I were able to ever combine the two, my love for telling stories, my love for traveling, I would definitely love doing that. I got to do it for an internship, but that's it.
But that's it. And how long was that internship?
It was 6 weeks. I worked at a
Okay.
magazine in Santiago.
So, like Santiago, like Chile?
Hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. Oh, that's exciting. That is exciting. That's traveling. I thought when you said traveling, I thought you meant like, from here to like New York and then back to LA. But you mean like travel.
No, I actually got to do that. I got to go do like hurricane reporting when they went to Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands and stuff. So I got to do a little travel reporting, but
But not much. You want more.
I would love more. Yeah.
All right. So now I want to talk about the future because, as you know, I mean, the interwebs, it's it's very difficult these days to trust your source, right? Everywhere I go, it's like, oh, make sure you look at this source. Make sure you read the New York Times, and then you read the Washington Post, and you watch local news versus you want to do everything. So it frustrates me because as a consumer, I'm like, that is the reporter's job. I don't want to watch three different stories about the same thing. I don't want to do that. I want the reporter to do the hard work and tell me the goddamn news, right? So that is the goal. But moving into the future, how is your local news station, or are you personally trying to get over this fake news conundrum that the U.S. is going through right now? I mean, you must know the best, but like, how are you and your network trying to get through this?
Yeah, so it's definitely been really hard, especially since the whole fake news thing was
Yes.
blasted. Sometimes I'll be out on the street, like getting video with my camera, and people will drive by and just yell like fake news or that. And I'm getting picture, like, I'll be getting like pictures of like the new flowers or something for like a fun story. And
Yeah.
it is really hard. It's been really frustrating. It's been a lot harder to do our jobs well because people
Yes.
have such a stigma.
Exactly.
But that's not to say that some people don't, um, deserve to feel like that because I know that they have been felt cheated. They have, there have been plenty of problems. Um, I personally, that's why I like local news again, because I think it's important to know what's happening in your hometown, what's
Yes, it
happening
is.
around you. Um, and we also share a lot of, ways that you can help the problems that are going around you. Um, and another thing that's cool too about local news is I know that because another thing that's happening is of course everyone wants they want their news on their phone. They want it
All
up their
day, every
social
day.
media. So we started doing like Facebook Live behind the scenes for some of our newscasts. So that way that we can, have interaction with our viewers, build that trust, but also so that they can ask us questions about stories. People also call our newsroom a lot and say, "Hey, I just saw this story, but I want to know this, this, and this," and they can actually like talk to the reporter who did it and get more information that way. Whereas, if you watch national news,
Oh, forget about it.
I don't think
There's no way you call it
you just
nobody's.
answer your phone call and explain to you the story. So that's another reason why I like local news. Of course, you want to tune into national to see what's going on in the world, but
Exactly. So
yeah.
and that's the thing with me and like the news where I feel like it's hard for me to understand because obviously there's national and then there's local, right? I feel like there's a roof. It's not like a glass ceiling. It's like an actual roof. Like you can't become too big, right? You don't. If it's local news, you want to stay local. You don't want to be too big, or is that like not a thing? Like, do you guys want? Obviously, you want the most viewership as possible, but you also want it to stay super. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yes. So, my everyone has a different producing philosophy, and it also
Okay.
depends kind of what show you're, producing. For us, like at my station, for our 5 and 6 o'clock shows, it's the majority local, but toward the end of the show, they will tell you, just the top stories of what's going on. Um, and maybe like your health news or big like money news, stuff like that. That's still, you want to just make it in a way, present the news in a way, even if it's national, in a way that it can relate to viewers. So
Of
like
course.
if if the president passes like a tax bill, we'll go ahead and do a story like how, when is that going to reach Southern Oregon? What do Southern Oregon senators or representatives think about it? We try to make the big news that affects everybody smaller and condense it for our viewers to what's relevant for them.
Okay. And for like growing, do you guys? It doesn't matter how many. Like you want as much viewership, right? That's not a thing. There's no cap on like we want to stay just strictly in Oregon.
For our local news,
Yeah, for your local news.
well, what broadcast, we only reach a certain coverage area.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I forgot that. I
in
forgot that TV was not like Facebook Live.
Southern Oregon
Yes,
and Northern California, but we do have like a viewer who tunes into all our Facebooks who's from Australia. I
that's
was talking to him
awesome.
yesterday, and we were talking about, because I had some story about like a kangaroo rat, and he was telling me about all the weird animals in Australia. So that's what's cool about Facebook, is you can reach more people. Um, I post stories about Oregon now on my Facebook page, and a lot of my likes are still people from Missouri, where I was working before,
Mm,
and they'll still message me or write things about my stories. So
wonderful. So do you feel famous?
no.
That's just a no. Do
Uh,
people recognize you in Oregon or Missouri? Like, have you walked out and said, "That is my news reporter"? Have you gotten that?
Yes, in Missouri more so than here.
You live here
Well,
longer,
I
right?
haven't been here too long,
Yeah.
but in Missouri, I like was on all of the shows. I
Oh,
worked
okay.
very much overtime, and it's also a smaller area. So most of the people who lived in that town watched that news station.
Okay.
So there I did. They had like at the baseball games, they had like my head on one of those giant sticks, and the kids would run around with them, and people would say, like, oh, that's Kristina Zagame, and stuff like that, or in the grocery store or
That's
whatever.
super
But
cool.
I never like felt. I feel like everyone's famous in a small town, right?
Do you do any sports at all?
Now,
Ever? Do you want to? Have you want?
sports.
Yeah.
I'm like super not athletic. I really I work out a ton. I
Good for
love
you.
I love working out. I love like taking classes, and I just started Beachbody, so I'm excited for that. Yoga, Pilates, all the fun stuff. Working out, like sports, I like playing sports. Like I'll play, like if someone's like, let's go play tennis, or like let's hit around the like lacrosse sticks. I'm always like, yeah, sure. I can't promise I'm gonna be good at it, but
But no, but you're not reporting on any sports. There's no, you're not gonna ever want to be the
oh,
news
sports
sports
reporting.
news.
I thought we were
Yeah.
just talking about sports in general.
No, 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 no. I was talking about
I
reporting.
was like, that's a really interesting. I guess we're just getting into my personal life now.
No, no.
I
I
have
mean,
done sports stories. At
okay.
my last station, I was really good friends with the sports guys, and they got to go down to Kansas City to the Royals and the Chiefs games. So, and they always
Oh,
got
that's
two
awesome.
passes, but usually only one of them could go. So sometimes I would just tag along and go and help them do their stuff, and then sometimes they would let me like get in front of the camera and do like stand-ups and stuff on the fields.
That's exciting. That's some nice perks you got there as a reporter.
It was pretty
Oh,
cool.
goodness gracious. Do you have any plans to come back here in Boston?
Hopefully in the future.
Beautiful. All right. So now let's talk about the actual choosing of the story. So there's a few stories that I get super excited when I've seen you done. So the nurse story that you recently did with the nurses strike, and they finally, I think I don't know if the details, if they finally got to an agreement, but whatever it is, I love that. Obviously, I'm a nurse, and I saw you a while ago, a long, long time ago. You did a story, and then you actually did a CrossFit workout, and I was like, "Go, Christina, go!" I thought that was exciting as well. When you are choosing a story, do you have a focus? Like you just said, you're not a big sports lady. Do you have a focus? Like, do you like to do the politics? Do you like to do like the local tragedy? Like talk about the fire or the car accident, or are you like the happy-go-lucky Good Morning America, Kristina Zagame news?
Definitely the second.
Okay.
Um, there's a time and a place where I do the more serious. I mean, I never get you're never going to get to do the happy-go-lucky stories every day. Of course you want to.
Of
Um,
course.
even if it's a tragedy, I like to do like the positive kind of spin on it. Like one of my biggest stories was on the 4th of July last year. There was a giant house explosion.
Oh, that's
Um,
scary.
yeah, I think they were making fireworks and it backfired. But so we had, of course, there were two of us out there, and the other reporter did the whole like nuts and bolts, like here's how the explosion happened, here's what cops are saying, here's who's facing charges, blah blah blah. But then they went to me. I actually got to the scene and found two men who ran in there and pulled and like saved this woman,
That's amazing.
pulled her out of the rebel right before like a second explosion. It saved her life. And I got like the exclusive on that story. A bunch of reporters from Kansas City were coming up to St. Joseph, where I was living, to do the story. And they didn't want to talk to anyone except for me because they watched me on TV and they liked me, whatever. So it was a really awesome feeling because I got to tell this really awesome story of these three guys who were heroes. Um, took a tragedy, spun it in a way that you're seeing the good and the bad. I always like
Yes.
to. And then I got a bunch of calls from Kansas City stations asking me to send me their stories so they could run it on their show. So it's pretty cool.
Well, good for you. So I am about to wrap this up, but I wanted to know, do you guys do any radio broadcasting, or is that not your forte? Do you have like a local podcast? Like, do you guys do that?
We send like uh like a news update 3 4 times a day to like the radio station that we partner with,
Oh, okay. Well,
of like
that's
here's
simple.
top stories. Yeah.
All right, so I call this the Everyday Hero Show, Christina, right? So I do this because I do think you're doing something special, you're doing something important, and it matters to a whole lot of people, obviously. And in your case, it's very apparent. But I would like, on that note, I would like you to share with the future, youngins who want to be broadcasters, news reporters. Give them some advice on how to get through the process. Maybe school is very guided, so that's not what I want. I want like a brand new, I'm starting out in a new local news station. How do I get from I'm nervous, I'm scared, I don't know how to do it, I don't know who to talk to being in your position where like you're finally getting your groove, right? Like you in a new, you're doing your thing. How do you get there?
Well, I think I mean, obviously, yeah, like school can prepare you, but I think another cool thing about this business is there are actually so many people who don't go to college who are just killing it in this industry. They're so good at it. And that's because there's only so much you can learn about this business in a classroom. It is do and it is a sink or swim business. So you need to just go into your first station and know that you're not going to be perfect. You are going to mess up. You are going to get awkward and laugh on TV when you're supposed to be telling sad stories. You're going to make all the mistakes and you're going to feel horrible about it. But you just have to keep at it. You have to um, remind yourself every day why you love doing this, why you're doing it, why it's important. And what I always tell people with this business, because a lot of people get in this business, and a lot of people don't stay in this business because it is hard.
Yeah.
It takes a toll on you. But what I tell people is you're going to have really, really good days and you're going to have really, really bad days. But as long as how you feel on those really, really good days outweighs how bad you feel on those really bad days, it's worth staying in. And I
I
think that
love
really
that.
goes to the case in any job. But
Oh, facts.
as soon as that scale starts tipping, then you might think maybe there's something else out there for
Christina,
me.
put that on a shirt. I like that. I like that a lot. I like that a lot. So before I end, when you said that you have your really really bad days, can I just know of a situation where you went through just like hell and it was like the worst day ever? I just want to know that situation. Because I always do these everyday heroes and I always talk about the positives and like how great this person is and how everyone wants to be like you, but I also want to give them the honest truth, right? So, can you just tell us what a rough day is for you?
Um, Again, it probably like my worst days happened when I was reporting. One time I was doing a story on this guy who um, someone had just gone to jail, accused of killing somebody. And I had to go knock on doors in his
Oh,
neighborhood to
Jesus
try to find
Lord.
his roommate, like trying to find his house, trying to find his roommate. And it's really uncomfortable to knock on people's doors with a camera bag in your hand, let alone like an alleged murderer's roommate.
And you're
And
asked, that's like that. Oh,
I
God.
stepped 1 foot onto his lawn and he just flipped out at me, and it was really uncomfortable. It was really bad. And
Jesus Lord.
yeah, I've gotten yelled at by a lot of people reporting. A lot of people. Another example is one time I was, doing election coverage, and it was like a controversial school board school bond, and some guy got out of his car, takes one look at me, says some nasty things, and then he was like, when are you leaving? I'll come back to vote when you're gone. Like, I don't want to be on camera, whatever. And I just kind of looked at him, and I turned like the lens of my camera off so it was black, and I turned my camera the other way, and I said, feel free to go. Like, I don't want to step in the way of your civil duty,
Oh,
but
damn it,
like it's
Lord.
my right to be here. But if you don't want to be on camera, like, go vote. I'd rather you go home. So those dates can be hard because people say things to you and you just have to kind of swallow it back and laugh about it. But sometimes it's hard too. Sometimes it really gets to you.
Have you ever thought about doing your own thing? Like doing like Kristina Zagame, like personal, like your own personal newscasting brand? Like, I'm gonna do my own shit on like a YouTube channel, a Facebook Live, like start your own podcast, do your own thing. Has that something that you've thought about slash
I
do you
have.
want to?
Yeah, I have. I think again, if I were to do something like that, I think it would definitely would be like more like travel based.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I've thought in the past about like starting a YouTube channel or a podcast or stuff like that, but it's actually really weird. I would say that I don't have that much confidence in doing something like that. Like to
Shut
me,
the
like,
hell up, Kristina. Yo,
it
you
is
better
true. Like
stop.
I mean, I can go to work, and I know that I'm this whole broadcast is set up for me, and I'm getting paid to be there. It's kind of the same as any other job. When once you're doing it every day, it doesn't feel any different than any other job. But having to rely on like getting viewers or like worrying about what your friends back from high school are gonna think, like, oh, another
Oh
YouTube star,
yeah.
that it to me is more like anxiety. That gives me more anxiety than going out to people that I don't know that well who are watching the local news.
So I gotta say, I mean, I, I I feel the same exact way. I mean, obviously, because I'm doing this thing. I mean, obviously. But so let's wrap this up. Last question. I promise. I promise. Before I wrap this up, do you have the choice to go? Like, can you instead of having a prompter and having an actual script, can you just do bullet points and just go off of that, or is that like a like is that something people do, or is it usually a prompter of the script that you typed up earlier?
When you go live out in the
Yeah,
field, you
like
don't have
anywhere,
a script.
anywhere. Oh,
I mean, like you have papers in your hand and you might have, something you're supposed to say, but a lot of times it's just bullet points because then I have to memorize something and then I have the stress of memorizing it. But um, in the studio, it's always scripted because if I just had bullet points, there'd be a lot of like, and you don't want that.
yeah, no,
So
you never do want that. You never do want that. Have you got to meet anyone famous?
I have in school though, not. not work.
Not working.
Yeah, I got to interview Pete Davidson, who's on SNL. He's a
That's
comedian.
exciting. That's
Yeah,
exciting.
it was cool. And I think someone else, but I can't remember now.
Can't remember. No worries. Kristina, do me a favor. Plug away. Please tell us where we can find you, where you want us to follow you. All of it. All of the good stuff. Please tell me and the world so we can find you.
Okay. Well, for my all of or for Instagram, you can just follow me. KM Zags is my like personal. I do have KZ with the story. That's more of like my news presenter Instagram. So I guess up to you on which
We're
one
gonna
you
be
want to see.
both. Both are gonna be on the screen, ladies and gentlemen. Please
Okay.
follow both. Please, please,
And
please.
on Facebook, it's just Kristina Zagame TV is where I post all of my news clips and stuff. So
Beautiful. Christina, I really do appreciate this. I know you're a busy lady, but like I said before, you are an everyday hero. I honestly, like I do, I really want to be you. So I think you're kicking some serious ass. I love what you're doing. Thank you, thank you, thank you.